Once upon a time, in the deepest, most mysterious corners of the ocean, where the water shimmers with pallors that have no names and the currents hum ancient melodies, there existed something truly extraordinary. It was a place spoken of in whispers by dolphins, sung about in the haunting ballads of the seals, and dreamed of by every curious creature who had ever wondered what lay beyond the horizon. This was the floating library of the whales, and tonight, dear listener, as you rest your head and let the world grow soft around you, I invite you to dive beneath the waves and discover its magic.
Welcome, dear listener, to tonight's journey into wonder. Before we begin, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, settle into your pillows, let your breathing slow, and prepare to drift into this journey with me tonight.
The floating library was not made of stone or wood, as libraries on land might be. Instead, it was woven from enormous strands of golden kelp, each piece carefully cultivated over centuries until they grew thick as ancient trees and strong as steel cables. These kelp strands twisted and braided together to form magnificent scrolls, each one longer than a sailing ship and inscribed with stories, songs, maps, and wisdom gathered from every corner of the 7 seas. The library drifted through the ocean depths, tethered to nothing, anchored to nowhere, yet never lost. It moved with the pod of whales who had been its guardians for longer than any living creature could remember. There were 12 whales in the pod, each one massive and gentle, their skin marked with the silver scars of time and the barnacles of countless journeys.
At dawn, when the first rays of sunlight pierced the surface and turned the water into liquid gold, the whales would rise together. Their songs echoed through the depths, a morning greeting that told every creature for 100 miles that the library was open, that knowledge was waiting, that anyone with a question could come and learn. The eldest whale, whose name was Meridian, led the morning song. Her voice was deep and resonant, carrying the weight of 7 decades of wisdom. Beside her swam her daughter, Cascade, whose voice was lighter, dancing between the notes like sunbeams through water. And among them all, barely keeping pace with her breathing exercises, was Luna. Luna was the youngest whale in the pod, barely 20 years old, which in whale years meant she was just finding her place in the world. Her skin was smooth and dark as a midnight sky, unmarked by the journeys and stories that decorated her elders. She had been born into the pod, born into the responsibility of the library. But lately, she had begun to feel the weight of a question that kept her awake even during the peaceful afternoon rests. Was she ready? Would she ever be ready? Scene 2. The arrival of the seekers. As morning bloomed into full day, the visitors began to arrive. First came a school of silver fish, moving as one shimmering entity, their question simple but profound. How do we stay together when the currents try to pull us apart? Meridian guided them to the scroll of unity, where stories of cooperation and collective strength had been recorded for millennia. The fish circled the scroll, their bodies catching the light
as they absorbed the ancient wisdom, and when they left, they moved with even greater harmony than before. Next came a sea turtle, old and unhurried, his shell covered in a garden of small anemones and trailing plants. He had travelled for many months to ask about navigation, about finding home even when the ocean floor shifted and the magnetic fields changed. Luna watched as Cascade unfurled the scroll of journeys, showing him star charts and current maps, teaching him the songs that whales use to remember the paths their ancestors had swum.
Throughout the day they came, an octopus seeking knowledge of problem solving and flexibility, a family of seals wanting to learn songs to teach their pups, a lonely anglerfish from the deepest trenches asking if there were others like her in the vast ocean, and being shown records of countless deep dwellers who had visited before her, proof that she was never truly alone. Luna assisted where she could, fetching scrolls, holding them steady in the current while visitors read. But mostly she watched her mother and Meridian, marvelling at how effortlessly they seemed to know exactly which scroll held the answer to each question, how they could read the ancient inscriptions as easily as breathing, how they made each visitor feel seen and valued. As the afternoon sun began to slant through the water, casting long shadows across the kelp scrolls, Luna found herself swimming apart from the others, lost in thought.
Luna drifted to the outer edge of the library, where the newest scrolls were kept. These were the ones still being written, their surfaces fresh and unmarked, waiting for new stories to be inscribed. She ran her fin along one gently, feeling its smooth texture, and the weight in her chest grew heavier. In 3 days there would be a ceremony. Meridian was growing old, her songs growing softer each season, and the time had come to pass the role of head librarian to the next generation. Everyone assumed it would be Cascade, Luna's mother, who was wise and patient and knew the library as well as she knew her own heartbeat. But Cascade had surprised them all by saying she wished to continue as a roaming librarian, bringing knowledge to distant waters where creatures could not make the journey to the library itself. That left Luna, who had barely lived 2 decades. Luna, who sometimes forgot which scrolls were which. Luna, who had never travelled beyond familiar waters or experienced the 1,000 things that filled the library's collections. "Excuse me, are you one of the librarians?" Luna turned to find a young seahorse, barely the length of her smallest barnacle, hovering nervously in the water. His tail was curled tight with anxiety, and his eyes were wide and hopeful. "I can help you," Luna said, trying to sound confident. "What is it you seek?" The seahorse's voice was barely a whisper. "I want to know how to be brave. I'm supposed to help watch my siblings' eggs, but I'm afraid I'll do it wrong. I'm afraid I'm not strong enough, not smart enough, not enough." Luna felt something shift in her chest. She looked at this tiny creature, trembling with the same doubts that haunted her own thoughts, and suddenly understood something important. "Come with me,"
Luna said softly, and she led the seahorse deeper into the library, past the grand scrolls that held epic journeys and great discoveries, past the records of legendary creatures and impossible feats. She swam to a section she had always overlooked before, where the smallest, oldest scrolls were kept, so ancient their kelp had turned almost white with age. These, Luna said, her voice growing stronger, are the scrolls of beginnings. They hold the first attempts, the earliest tries, the moments when everyone who ever did anything remarkable was just starting out and had no idea what they were doing. She carefully unfurled one of the tiny scrolls, and the seahorse pressed close to read. The inscription was simple, written in a shaky hand that suggested its author had been learning to write as they recorded their story.
Today I swam with the library pod for the first time. I am terrified. What if I fail them? What if I am not worthy of this honor? But Meridian told me something I must remember. Wisdom is not about knowing everything. It is about being willing to learn, to admit what you do not know, and to keep trying anyway. So I will try. I will fail sometimes, but I will keep swimming forward. The inscription was signed with a symbol Luna recognized. It was Meridian's mark, written when she herself was young, when she had first joined the library pod and faced the same fears Luna faced now. The seahorse's eyes widened. Even the great Meridian was scared. Everyone is scared at the beginning, Luna said, and as she spoke the words, she felt their truth settling into her bones. Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means swimming forward anyway, learning as you go, asking for help when you need it, and believing that you can grow into who you need to be.
The seahorse's tail uncurled slightly. Do you think I could really watch over my siblings' eggs, even though I'm small? Luna thought about her answer carefully. I think you already are brave, coming here to ask for help. That takes courage. And I think that caring about doing well means you'll try your hardest. That's what matters most. The little seahorse seemed to grow an inch taller in the water. He thanked Luna with a voice that no longer trembled, and as he swam away, Luna noticed something remarkable. She felt lighter. By helping someone else understand their worth, she had begun to understand her own.
As the sun descended and painted the surface water in shades of amber and rose, the pod gathered for their evening council. This was a sacred time when the whales discussed the day's visitors, decided which new stories should be added to the scrolls, and shared what they had learned. Meridian spoke first, her ancient voice full of warmth. Today, 73 seekers came to the library. 73 souls went home with more than they carried here. This is good work. This is why we swim. The other whales hummed their agreement, the sound vibrating through the water like a shared heartbeat. Cascade spoke next. I spoke with the sea turtle today about navigation. He reminded me that sometimes the longest journeys teach us the most, not because of where we end up, but because of how we change along the way. I think this wisdom should be added to the scroll of journeys.
It shall be done, Meridian said. Luna, would you inscribe this tonight?
Luna felt her heart leap. Inscribing the scrolls was a serious task. one usually reserved for the most experienced librarians. Yes, I would be honoured. Meridian's eye caught hers, and in that gaze, Luna saw understanding, encouragement, and something that might have been pride. The council continued, each whale sharing their encounters, their observations, their thoughts on what the library needed. Luna listened carefully, beginning to understand that being a librarian was not about knowing everything, but about being present for those who sought knowledge, about connecting creatures with the wisdom they needed, about constantly learning and growing alongside those they served.
Several whales gasped. Luna felt as if the ocean had disappeared and she was floating in space, unable to find up or down. But, Luna's voice cracked, "But I'm not ready. I don't know enough what the library needs. Luna, I have watched you these past seasons. You doubt yourself, yes, but that doubt makes you careful, thoughtful, willing to learn. You do not pretend to know what you do not. You ask questions. You listen. Today I observed you helping a seahorse, and I saw you discover something important about wisdom, about courage, about what it means to guide others." Luna felt tears forming, though underwater they were invisible. "What if I fail? What if I let everyone down?"
Meridian did not answer immediately. Instead, she said, "Come, swim with me." The ancient whale turned and began swimming away from the library, out into the open ocean, where the water grew darker and the stars above began to emerge like scattered diamonds. Luna followed, her mind racing with questions and fears. They swam in silence for a long while, moving through water that held the memories of 10,000 generations of whales. Finally, Meridian spoke. "When I was your age, I was terrified of this responsibility. I thought the head librarian had to be perfect, had to never make mistakes, had to have all the answers. I was wrong about all of it."
She paused, her massive body gliding effortlessly through the current. "The first time I was asked a question I could not answer, I wanted to disappear into the deepest trench. A young orca had come to ask about grief, about losing her mother, and I realized we had no scroll that addressed such pain. I felt like a failure." "What did you do?" Luna whispered. I told her the truth. I said I did not have the answer, but I would help her search for it. Together, we spoke with other creatures who had experienced loss. We gathered their stories, their wisdom, their different ways of carrying sorrow. And from all of this, we created a new scroll, the Scroll of Healing Hearts. Meridian turned to face Luna directly. "That scroll has helped hundreds of creatures since then. It exists because I did not know the answer, because I was willing to admit my limits and learn alongside someone who needed help. Do you understand what I am telling you?" Luna thought about the seahorse, about how helping him had helped her. She thought about the library, about how it grew, not because one whale knew everything, but because many creatures shared what they learned. She thought about beginnings,
about how every expert was once a beginner who kept trying. The library is not about having all the answers, Luna said slowly. It is about the journey of seeking them. It is about learning together. It is about preserving not just what we know, but the questions that drive us to keep discovering. Meridian's eyes gleamed with something that might have been joy. Yes, little one, exactly yes. They swam back to the library through water that sparkled with bioluminescent plankton, creating trails of light with every movement. The library floated peacefully in the darkness, its kelp scrolls glowing softly with their own gentle phosphorescence, accumulated over centuries of being touched by countless seeking creatures. The rest of the pod was resting, their enormous bodies rising and falling with the rhythm of sleep. But Luna felt more awake than she had in months. The fear was still there, coiled in her chest like a sleeping eel, but it no longer paralyzed her. Instead, it felt like energy, like possibility, like a challenge she could choose to face. She swam to the newest scrolls, the blank ones waiting for stories. In the darkness, she began to inscribe, using the traditional method passed down through generations, pressing carefully with her fin to create grooves that would hold ink made from squid secretions and mineral deposits. She wrote about the seahorse. She wrote about her conversation with Meridian. She wrote about what she was learning, that leadership was not about perfection, that wisdom grew through questions, that courage meant trying even when you were afraid. As she worked, she felt Cascade drift up beside her. Her mother said nothing, just held one edge of the scroll steady while Luna inscribed. When Luna finished, Cascade spoke for the first time. I am proud of you, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing to grow. That is all any of us can ever do. Are you sure you do not want this role, Mother? Luna asked quietly. You would be so much better at it than I will be.
Cascade smiled, the expression visible in the warmth of her eyes. I want to travel, to bring knowledge to those who cannot come to us. That is my calling. But you, my daughter, you have a gift for making others feel safe enough to ask their real questions, the ones that matter most. You helped that seahorse not by knowing everything, but by understanding exactly what he needed to hear. That is what a great librarian does. Luna felt something shift inside her, like a current changing direction, like the tide finally turning after being held back too long. I will do it, she said. I will accept the role. I will try my best. I will fail sometimes, but I will keep learning, keep asking, keep growing. And I will remember that the library is not mine to control, but ours to share. 3 days later, as promised, the ceremony took place. Creatures came from all corners of the ocean, summoned by the whale songs that carried across hundreds of miles. The water around the library teemed with life. Dolphins and sharks swimming side by side, octopi and sea lions, tiny crabs and enormous whale sharks, all gathered to witness the passing of responsibility. Meridian floated at the center of the library,
her ancient body still majestic despite her years. Beside her, Luna waited, no longer trembling, though her heart beat fast with excitement and nervousness and hope. "We gather here," Meridian's voice rolled out across the assembly, "to honor a tradition as old as the ocean itself. The floating library belongs to no one and to everyone. It is our collective memory, our shared wisdom, our gift to the future. For 70 years, I have served as its head librarian, and it has been the greatest privilege of my long life."
A hush fell over the gathered creatures, the only sound the gentle movement of water and the distant singing of other whales, too far away to attend, but adding their voices to honor the moment. Today, I pass this responsibility to Luna, who is young but ready, who is uncertain but brave, who understands that wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about being willing to search for them together. Luna, do you accept the role of head librarian, with all its challenges and joys, its questions and discoveries, its endless opportunities to learn and to serve? Luna thought about the seahorse, about Meridian's story of the scroll of healing hearts, about the blank scrolls waiting for new stories. She thought about how fear had become possibility, how doubt had transformed into determination. "I accept," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I promise to serve the library and all who seek knowledge within it. I promise to preserve the old wisdom while staying open to new understanding. I promise to admit when I do not know, to ask for help when I need it, and to never stop learning. Most of all, I promise to remember that every creature who comes here seeking knowledge is brave and deserves to be treated with respect and care."
Meridian smiled, a deep, rumbling expression of joy. "Then it is done. From this moment forward, Luna is head librarian of the floating library of the whales." The assembled creatures erupted in celebration, their various sounds creating a symphony unlike anything Luna had ever heard. Dolphins clicked and whistled, seals barked, fish created percussion by flipping their tails, and the whales, all the whales from every corner of the ocean who had come to witness this moment, they sang. The song rose and rose, filling the water, travelling up to the surface and down to the deepest trenches, announcing to the entire ocean that the library had a new guardian, that knowledge would continue to be preserved and shared, that wisdom would keep growing, one question and one answer and one brave seeker at a time.
The celebration lasted through the night, but when the sun rose the next morning, the library opened as it always did, ready to serve those who sought knowledge. Luna led the morning song, and though her voice wavered at first, it grew stronger with each note, supported by the voices of her pod surrounding her. The first visitor of Luna's tenure as head librarian was appropriately a young creature. A small squid, barely the size of Luna's eye, drifted nervously near the library's entrance. "Welcome," Luna said warmly. "What knowledge do you seek today?" The squid's tentacles twisted with uncertainty. "I want to learn about colours. I can change colours, but I do not know why I can, or what it means, or how to do it with purpose instead of by accident. My parents say I will figure it out eventually, but I want to understand now." Luna felt a surge of recognition. Another young creature,
eager to learn, uncertain but brave enough to ask. She could have sent the squid to one of the other librarians, could have claimed she was too busy settling into her new role. Instead, she smiled.
"That is an excellent question," she said. "Come with me." She led the squid to a scroll she had studied just the week before in her first reading, seeing connections she had not noticed before. The squid asked questions that made Luna think more deeply, challenge assumptions, consider new possibilities. By the time the squid left, changing colours deliberately and joyfully as it swam away, Luna understood something profound. Every creature who came to the library was not just seeking knowledge, but bringing it. Every question was a gift. Every interaction a chance to learn something new.
Months passed, then seasons. Luna grew into her role, not by becoming perfect, but by becoming more fully herself. She made mistakes, yes. There were days when she directed seekers to the wrong scrolls, when she misremembered information, when she had to admit she did not know the answer and needed to research alongside those who had asked. But with each mistake came a lesson. With each admission of uncertainty came an opportunity to learn. The library grew under her care, not because she controlled it tightly, but because she opened it up, encouraging every visitor to not just take knowledge, but to contribute it. A wandering albatross brought stories of distant islands and weather patterns. A family of octopi shared their discoveries about problem solving and tool use. A very old sea turtle contributed memories of how the ocean currents had shifted over her century of life, information that was immediately added to the scroll of journeys and would help countless navigators in the future.
Luna established a new tradition, the open scroll, a section where anyone could record their observations, questions, and discoveries, no matter how small they seemed. Some of the other whales worried this would lead to the library being filled with trivial information, but Luna believed differently. Every observation matters, she told them. Today's small notice about how a certain type of algae grows near warm vents might be tomorrow's crucial information for a creature trying to find food. We cannot know in advance what will be important. She was right. Within a year, the open scroll had become one of the most visited sections of the library, filled with practical wisdom, surprising observations, and connections between ideas that no one had considered before.
Not everything was easy. In Luna's second year as head librarian, a crisis emerged. A group of sharks arrived at the library, led by a scarred old bull who seemed to radiate hostility. The other creatures scattered, fear rippling through the water. The bull shark approached Luna directly. "I hear you collect knowledge here. I want to know about your roots, your patterns, where you swim and when. We are interested in the movements of whales." Luna felt fear grip her heart. This was not a seeker of wisdom. This was a threat. But she forced herself to remain calm, to remember what Meridian had taught her. Knowledge in this library is freely given to those who seek it with honest intent, Luna said carefully. I sense that your question comes not from a desire to learn, but from a desire to harm. The library serves all creatures, but it does not aid those who would use wisdom as a weapon.
The bull shark's eyes narrowed. Are you saying you will not help me? I am saying that I will help you ask a better question. Why do you want this information? What need drives you? Perhaps there is wisdom here that could address your true concern without requiring information that could endanger my pod." The shark seemed taken aback. No one had ever asked him why before. His aggression faltered, and in that moment of hesitation, something underneath emerged. My territory has been invaded by fishing vessels. They drop nets. They take everything. They leave nothing for us to hunt. My family is hungry. I thought if I could predict where large prey like whales would be, we could follow, could feed on what follows you. I am desperate." Luna's fear transformed into compassion. Here was not a villain, but a creature in pain, lashing out because he did not know what else to do. This was exactly the kind of challenge the library existed to address. "Come with me," she said gently.
Luna led the shark to multiple scrolls. The scroll of adaptation, which detailed how other predators had adjusted their hunting patterns when their traditional grounds changed. The scroll of migration, which showed routes of prey species that might not be affected by the fishing vessels. The scroll of cooperation, which told stories of unlikely alliances between species facing common threats. As they read together, the shark's hostility melted away. He was not a monster. He was a father, a leader of his own group, trying desperately to provide for those who depended on him. Luna spent hours with him, not just showing him scrolls, but helping him think through his options, considering possibilities he had never imagined. By the time he left, he had a plan. More importantly, he had hope, and he had learned something crucial. Asking for help was not weakness, but wisdom. Word of this encounter spread through the ocean. Other creatures who had feared the library, who had thought it was only for the gentle or the scholarly, began to arrive. Predators and prey visited side by side, learning not just facts, but empathy, not just information, but understanding. Luna realized that the library's greatest power was not in the scrolls themselves, but in the space it created for different creatures to meet, to share, to find common ground. The physical knowledge was important, yes, but the compassion that grew from shared learning was transformative.
3 years into Luna's tenure, something extraordinary happened. A creature arrived from depths so profound that no whale had ever swum there. It was unlike anything Luna had ever seen. Translucent, glowing with its own inner light, its form shifting and changing as if it could not quite decide what shape to take. The creature spoke, though not with sound. Its thoughts appeared directly in Luna's mind, a form of communication the deep dwellers had developed where sound did not travel well. "I have heard of this place, this collection of knowledge, even in the trenches where pressure crushes everything and darkness is absolute. I have come to ask a question that has never been asked here before." Luna felt excitement surge through her. "Please, ask. All questions are welcome here." "I want to know about light. In my world, there is no sunlight, no moon, no stars. We create our own light, but I have always wondered, what is it like to see the sun? Not just to know it exists, but to understand what it feels like, what it means. Can knowledge like that be preserved in your scrolls?" Luna felt stumped. They had many scrolls about the sun, about light, about the physics and biology of vision. But this creature was asking for something different. Not facts, but experience. How could she share something so fundamentally tied to sensation, to feeling? Then she remembered something important. The library was not just what was already written. It was what they created together. "I do not have a scroll that answers your question," Luna admitted, "but I think we can create one. Wait here." Luna called out through the water,
summoning creatures from all depths and distances. To each, she asked a simple question. What does the sun mean to you? A sea turtle spoke of warmth, of how sunlight heated the beaches where her eggs incubated, of how life itself seemed to flow from that distant star. A school of tropical fish described colour, how the sun transformed their scales into living rainbows, how they danced in its rays for the simple joy of being beautiful. A seal talked about orientation, about how the sun guided their navigation, marking time and direction, a constant friend in an ever-changing ocean. A tiny plankton, almost too small to see, explained how the sun was food, how its single cell could transform light into energy, how every fish that ate plankton, and every bigger fish that ate those fish, and every whale that ate those bigger fish, was really eating captured sunlight, making every creature in the ocean a child of the sun. Luna carefully inscribed each description, each metaphor, each attempt to capture something as vast and ineffable as sunlight. The deep-sea creature read every word, its form rippling with what might have been emotion.
I understand now, it said finally. The sun is not one thing. It is warmth and direction and food and beauty and time and life itself. In my dark world, we have our own lights, and perhaps they mean the same things to us, just in different forms. Thank you for showing me that knowing something is not about having one perfect answer, but about gathering many perspectives and seeing how they connect. As the creature departed, descending back to its unimaginable depths, Luna realized something profound. The library had grown again, but not just with facts. It had grown with understanding, with empathy, with the recognition that wisdom came in many forms, and every perspective added to the whole. She carefully placed the new scroll of experiences in a place of honor, knowing it would be the first of many such scrolls, each one capturing not just information, but the lived reality of different creatures, the felt truth of existence in all its variety.
Years passed. Luna was no longer young, though she was not yet old. She had guided the library through storms and calm seas, had welcomed thousands of seekers, had overseen the creation of hundreds of new scrolls. The library had grown under her care, but more importantly, she had grown with it. One evening, as the light faded and the water cooled, a familiar presence approached. It was Meridian, now truly ancient, her body smaller than Luna remembered, her movements slow but deliberate. She had been swimming in distant warm waters, living her final years in peace, but she had returned. I wanted to see the library one more time, Meridian said softly, and to see what you have made of it. Luna swam beside her mentor, guiding her through the library as she had once been guided. She showed Meridian the new scrolls, the open scrolls section, the scroll of experiences. She told stories of the seekers who had come, the questions that had been asked, the wisdom that had been shared and preserved. Meridian listened to everything, her old eyes bright with attention. When Luna finished, the ancient whale was quiet for a long moment. You have done more than preserve the library, Meridian said finally. You have transformed it. You have made it not just a repository of knowledge, but a living, growing, evolving thing. You have made it a place where wisdom is not just stored, but created,
where every visitor becomes a contributor, where questions are valued as much as answers. This is beyond anything I could have hoped for.
Luna felt tears again, as she had on the night Meridian first offered her this role. But now they were not tears of fear or doubt. They were tears of gratitude, of recognition, of understanding how far she had come from that young whale who had been so certain she was not ready. "I was terrified when you chose me," Luna admitted. "I did not think I was good enough, wise enough, strong enough." "You were not," Meridian said gently. "None of us ever are at the beginning. But you were willing to grow, willing to learn, willing to try. That was enough. That is always enough." Meridian stayed for several days, simply being present in the library, watching Luna work, observing how she interacted with seekers. On the last evening before she would depart for the final time, she called Luna to swim with her once more into the open ocean, as they had done years before. They swam in comfortable silence, two whales who had shared something precious and irreplaceable. Finally, Meridian spoke. "I am dying, Luna. My time is very near. This does not make me sad. I have lived a full life, a rich life, a life of purpose and meaning. But I wanted to tell you something important before I go." Luna waited, her heart heavy but open. "The library will outlive both of us," Meridian continued. "Someday you too will grow old, and you will choose someone to carry this responsibility forward. When that time comes, remember how you felt when I chose you. Remember your doubts and fears, and choose someone who feels those same doubts, because they are the ones who understand how precious and serious this work is. Choose someone who asks questions, who admits what they do not know, who is willing to learn and grow and change. I will remember," Luna promised. "And remember this, the library is not just the scrolls, not just the knowledge written on kelp. The library is the space we create for curiosity, for connection, for the brave act of asking questions, and the generous act of helping others find answers. The library is love, Luna. It is our love for learning, for each other, for the vast, mysterious ocean we all share. That is what you preserve. That is what you pass forward." After Meridian left, Luna found herself floating at the surface, something she rarely did. Above her, the night sky spread out in an infinity of stars, each one a sun like the one that warmed their water. Each one perhaps surrounded by its own worlds, its own oceans, its own creatures, wondering and questioning and seeking. She thought about the journey she had taken, from frightened young whale to confident keeper of wisdom. She thought about how her doubt had become her strength, how her questions had led to deeper understanding, how her willingness to be vulnerable and uncertain had allowed her to connect with every creature who came to the library feeling the same way. She thought about the seahorse who had been her first lesson in what it meant to guide others. She had heard, through the network of ocean gossip, that he had grown up to be a wonderful guardian of his siblings' eggs and was now teaching his own children about courage and responsibility. She thought about the shark who had arrived in hostility and left with hope, who now sometimes returned to the library to share what he had learned about adaptation and survival, contributing to the very scrolls that had once helped him.
She thought about the deep sea creature whose question about sunlight had taught her that the library could grow in ways she had never imagined, that knowledge was not just about facts, but about sharing the full richness of experience. And she thought about Meridian, swimming now in warm waters, living her final days in peace, secure in the knowledge that she had chosen well, that the library would continue, that wisdom would keep flowing like the currents themselves, eternal and life-giving. Luna dove back down to the library, where her pod slept peacefully among the glowing scrolls. She swam quietly past them, running her fin gently along the kelp, feeling the texture of knowledge accumulated over centuries, feeling the weight of responsibility that no longer felt like a burden, but like a gift.
The next morning brought a surprise that made Luna smile with recognition. A young whale approached the library, barely 18 years old, swimming with the nervous energy of someone who had travelled far to ask something important. "Welcome," Luna said warmly. "I am Luna, head librarian. What brings you to us today?" The young whale, whose name was Crest, fidgeted in the water. "I have heard of this library all my life. My grandmother told me stories about it. She said that when she was young, she came here and learned how to find her way when she was lost, and it changed her life. I wanted to see it for myself." "What is it you seek to learn?" Luna asked gently. Crest hesitated, and in that hesitation, Luna saw herself years ago. Finally, the young whale spoke in a rush of words. "I want to learn everything. I want to know about the stars and the currents, about history and science, about music and navigation and healing and stories, and I know that is too much, that I cannot learn everything, but I do not know where to start, and I am afraid I will waste my life trying to know things that do not matter, or miss the things that do, and—" "Breathe," Luna said softly, and Crest stopped, taking a deep breath that made the water around her ripple. Luna smiled. "I have good news and challenging news. The good news is that wanting to learn everything means you have a curious mind, and that is the most valuable thing you can have. The challenging news is that you are right. You cannot know everything. No one can. Not even after 7 decades of being head librarian could Meridian claim to have read every scroll." Crest's face fell. "Then what is the point? If I can never know everything, why try?" Luna led Crest to a small, unimpressive scroll near the edge of the library. It was one of the oldest, its kelp darkened with age, its inscriptions faded, but still legible. "Read this," Luna said. Crest read aloud, slowly. "Wisdom is not measured by how much you know, but by how much you wonder. The greatest scholars are not those who have learned the most, but those who never stop asking questions. Every piece of knowledge is a doorway to more knowledge. You will never reach the end, and that is beautiful, not sad. The journey is the reward." Crest looked up at Luna with wide eyes. "Who wrote this?" "The first head librarian, whose name is lost to time. It was written over 300 years ago, and it remains the truest thing in this entire library." Luna swam closer to Crest. "You want to know where to start? Start with what interests you most right now, in this moment. Learn about that until you find a question that leads you somewhere else. Then follow that question. Your path through knowledge will be yours alone, and it will be perfect because it is yours. You will learn what you need to learn when you need to learn it. Trust the journey." Crest spent the entire day at the library, and Luna spent much of it swimming alongside her, not directing, but suggesting, not commanding, but offering possibilities. She watched as Crest discovered the scroll of stars,
became fascinated by navigation, which led to questions about migration, which led to stories of long journeys, which led to wondering about courage, which led back to the scroll of beginnings. By evening, Crest was exhausted but glowing with excitement. I thought I would feel overwhelmed, but instead I feel like I have found a map, not to all knowledge, but to my own path through it. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Luna said. That is exactly what the library is meant to do. Not to give you all the answers, but to help you find the questions that matter to you, the ones that will guide your life. As Crest prepared to leave, she turned back to Luna. Will you be here if I return? I think I will have more questions. I will be here, Luna promised. And even if someday I am not, someone else will be. The library continues. The teaching continues. The learning never stops. After Crest left, Luna felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had just done for another young whale what Meridian had done for her, what the library had been doing for centuries. She had helped someone understand that wisdom was not about arriving at a destination, but about embracing the journey with open eyes and an eager heart.
Not all days were peaceful. One autumn, a great storm descended on the ocean, the kind that came once in a generation. The water churned violently, currents shifted unpredictably, and creatures everywhere sought shelter in caves and crevices, waiting for the chaos to pass. The library pod faced a crisis. The scrolls, normally stable in their floating configuration, began to drift apart as the currents pulled in different directions. Some of the oldest scrolls, brittle with age, started to fray. The carefully organized sections scattered, mixing together in confusion. "We need to gather them," one of the younger whales cried out in panic. "We need to organize them again." But Luna had learned something over her years as head librarian. Sometimes you had to let things fall apart to see what truly mattered. "No," she said calmly. "We protect the scrolls from damage, yes. We keep them from being destroyed. But we do not fight the storm to maintain perfect order. We accept the chaos, we do what we can, and we trust that we will rebuild afterward." The pod worked together through the long hours of the storm, using their bodies to shield the most fragile scrolls, guiding the others into protected areas, but not exhausting themselves trying to maintain an impossible standard of organization. When the storm finally passed and the water calmed, the library was a disaster. Scrolls floated everywhere, mixed together without any clear system. It would take weeks to reorganize everything. Luna looked at the chaos, and, to the surprise of her pod, she smiled. "This," she said, "is an opportunity." Luna called for volunteers from across the ocean. "The library needs reorganizing," she announced through the Whale Song Network. "Come help us, and in return, you will learn what the library contains. You will touch every scroll, read pieces of everything, and in doing so, you will help us see the library with fresh eyes." They came by the hundreds, octopi with their multiple arms, perfect for handling delicate scrolls. Dolphins with their quick minds, excellent at seeing patterns and connections. Sea turtles with their patience, ideal for the slow work of careful organization. Rays and eels and countless fish, all working together. Luna organized them into teams, but she gave each team freedom to suggest new ways of organizing the knowledge. The storm had broken the old system, so why not build something better? Some scrolls were organized by topic, as they had been before, but others were now grouped by question type. Some were arranged by emotions they addressed. Some were connected by themes that crossed traditional categories. The scroll of navigation ended up near the scroll of finding purpose, because both were about knowing where you were going. The scroll of healing hearts was placed next to the scroll of celebrations, because both dealt with intense emotions and community support.
The work took a month, but when it was finished, the library was transformed. It was no longer just organized logically, but organically, with connections and relationships that reflected how creatures actually thought and learned, with all the wonderful tangles and unexpected links that made knowledge come alive. More importantly, every creature who had helped with the reorganization left with knowledge they had gained by touching and reading the scrolls. The storm's chaos had become a massive teaching opportunity, spreading wisdom throughout the ocean in a way that never would have happened if the library had remained perfectly ordered. Luna understood then that sometimes destruction was necessary for growth, that sometimes you had to let go of control to discover something better, that the universe had its own wisdom in how it rearranged things.
Years continued to pass. Luna was now middle-aged for a whale, approaching 35 years, and the library had become more than she had ever imagined when she first fearfully accepted the responsibility. One evening, after all the visitors had departed, she found herself alone among the scrolls, thinking about purpose. She had dedicated her life to this work, and she did not regret it, but she wondered sometimes what else she might have done, what other paths she might have taken. As if summoned by her thoughts, Cascade returned from her years of roaming. Luna's mother had aged gracefully, her body marked now with scars from long travels and encounters with countless creatures in distant waters. "Hello, my daughter," Cascade said warmly. "I have missed you." They swam together, catching up on years apart. Cascade told stories of remote reefs and deep trenches, of creatures who had never heard of the library but had their own wisdom to share, of the joy of being a travelling teacher, bringing knowledge to those who could not come to seek it.
"Do you ever wonder if you made the right choice?" Luna asked, "choosing to roam instead of staying here?" Cascade considered this carefully. Every choice we make means not choosing something else. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had stayed, but I do not regret my choice, because I have lived the life I needed to live, learned what I needed to learn. Do you regret accepting the library? Luna thought about the thousands of creatures she had helped, the wisdom she had preserved and shared, the growth she had experienced, the connections she had made. "No," she said slowly, "but sometimes I wonder if I have missed something, living always in one place, always with the library." "That is the nature of being alive," Cascade said gently. "We cannot live all possible lives. We choose one path, and we trust that it is the right one for us, even if we sometimes wonder about the roads not taken. But Luna, look at what you have built here. Look at how the library has grown under your care, how it has touched so many lives. That is not a small thing. That is a remarkable legacy." The next morning brought a visitor unlike any before. A human child, no more than 10 years old, appeared in the water, wearing strange equipment that let her breathe underwater. Luna had encountered humans before, mostly scientists studying whales or divers exploring the ocean, but never a child, and never one who approached the library with such obvious intention. "Hello," the child said through her breathing device, her voice strange and mechanical but understandable. My grandfather told me about this place. He was a marine biologist. He said he once saw it, decades ago, and it changed how he understood the ocean. I have been searching for months. Can I see it? Luna felt a mixture of emotions. Humans were complicated. They had brought harm to the ocean in many ways, but they had also shown capacity for wonder, for protection, for learning. This child had travelled far to find them, driven by curiosity and her grandfather's stories. "What do you seek to learn?" Luna asked. The child's eyes widened behind her mask. "You can understand me. You can talk." "We all communicate," Luna said, "just in different ways. What brings you here?" The child was quiet for a moment, floating in the water with a grace that suggested she was comfortable in this environment. "I want to know if humans belong in the ocean. We do so much harm. The plastic, the fishing, the noise, the warming. My grandfather spent his life studying the ocean, trying to protect it. But sometimes I think maybe we should just stay away, that we only make things worse. But then I think about how much I love the ocean, how much I want to learn about it, and I do not know what is right." Luna had never been asked such a question before. It was not about facts or skills or traditional knowledge. It was about ethics, about belonging, about the complicated relationship between species. "Come with me," Luna said.
Luna led the child to a scroll that had been created just 5 years earlier, after a long discussion among many creatures about the role of humans in the ocean ecosystem. It was called the Scroll of Balance, and it contained perspectives from dozens of species about living with creatures different from yourself. The child read slowly, her eyes moving across inscriptions made by octopi tentacles, whale fins, and dolphin beaks, each one adding a different voice to the conversation. One entry from an old dolphin said, "Humans have capacity for great harm and great healing. They are not our enemies, but neither are they our saviours. They are part of the ocean's story now, for better and worse, and the question is not whether they belong, but whether they will choose to belong responsibly." Another entry from a sea turtle who had been entangled in fishing nets and freed by human rescuers said, "I have known humans who kill and humans who save. They are not one thing. Like all creatures, they contain multitudes. We must judge them by their actions, not their species, and hope they will learn to live with wisdom."
A third entry from a whale whose family had been hunted by humans generations ago, but who now watched human boats peacefully, said, "The past cannot be undone, but the future can be chosen. I have seen humans change. I have seen them learn. They are young as a species, still figuring out their place in the world. Perhaps that is why they make such terrible mistakes. But perhaps they can still grow into wisdom." The child read every entry, tears forming in her eyes behind the mask. When she finished, she looked up at Luna. "So the answer is, it depends on what we choose." "Yes," Luna said simply. "You belong in the ocean if you come with respect, with a desire to learn rather than to take, with an understanding that you are part of something larger than yourself. Your species has done harm, yes, but you are not your species. You are yourself, and you get to decide what kind of human you will be." The child nodded slowly. "I want to be the kind who helps, the kind who learns, the kind who makes things better, not worse." "Then you are welcome here," Luna said. "Come back whenever you wish. Learn what you can. Carry the ocean's wisdom back to your own kind. Be a bridge between worlds. That is how balance is maintained, through individuals who choose to connect, to understand, to care." More years passed, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. Luna taught and learned, led and followed,
made decisions and admitted mistakes. The library continued to grow, not just in size, but in depth, in nuance, in the richness of perspectives it contained. She watched young creatures arrive nervous and leave confident. She saw friendships form between species that had never interacted before. She witnessed understanding bloom in the space between question and answer, in the quiet moments of shared learning. Crest, the young whale who had come years ago wanting to learn everything, returned regularly and had become one of the library's most dedicated volunteers. She had followed her path through knowledge and discovered a passion for healing, learning everything the scrolls contained about treating injuries and illness, about medicinal plants and therapeutic sounds, about the connection between body and mind. The human child, whose name was Maya, came back every few months, each time staying longer, learning more, and eventually beginning to contribute her own observations to the open scroll. She recorded human knowledge about ocean conservation, about scientific discoveries her species had made, about technologies being developed to clean pollution and restore damaged ecosystems. The shark, who had once approached with hostility, now led a group of predators who met regularly at the library to discuss sustainable hunting practices and how to adapt to the changing ocean. They were rough and scarred, but they came with genuine respect for the knowledge preserved there. Luna saw all of this and understood that the library's greatest power was not in the information it held, but in the community it created. It was a place where different creatures could meet as equals, where questions mattered more than answers, where learning was a shared journey rather than a solitary achievement.
On the anniversary of Meridian's death, which had come peacefully in warm southern waters 3 years after her final visit to the library, Luna instituted a new tradition. She called it the Night of Remembering, and she invited every creature who had ever been touched by the library to gather and share stories. They came from all corners of the ocean, hundreds upon hundreds of them. The water was so full of life that it shimmered with movement and colour, with the sounds of different species greeting each other, with the energy of a massive community coming together. Luna led the ceremony, her voice strong and clear. We gather tonight to remember Meridian, who served this library for 70 years and who taught me everything I know about wisdom and leadership. But we also gather to remember something larger, that knowledge lives not just in scrolls, but in us, in the stories we carry, in the lessons we have learned, in the wisdom we pass forward to others. One by one, creatures came forward to share. The old sea turtle spoke of how the library had taught him to navigate when he was young and lost. The octopus family shared how the scroll of problem solving had helped them survive when their reef home was destroyed. Maya, the human child now nearly grown, told of how the library had given her purpose, had shown her that humans could be part of the ocean's healing rather than only its harm. The seahorse, now fully grown with children of his own, spoke of his first visit, of his fear and doubt, and of how Luna had helped him see that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to try anyway. Stories flowed like currents, each one connecting to others, creating a tapestry of shared experience and mutual growth. Luna listened to every story, her heart full, understanding that this was the library's true legacy, not the preserved wisdom of the past, but the living wisdom being created right now, in this moment, by all these creatures learning and growing together. As the night deepened and the stories continued, Luna felt Meridian's presence somehow, not as a ghost, but as a memory woven into the fabric of everything around her. The old whale lived on in the library she had served, in the wisdom she had preserved, in Luna, whom she had chosen and taught, in every creature who had ever been helped by the knowledge kept here. Death was not an ending, Luna realized. It was a transformation, a way of becoming part of something larger, of flowing back into the great ocean of existence and continuing in new forms. The next morning, exhausted but content after the night of remembering, Luna was resting among the scrolls when a small voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, head librarian." Luna opened her eyes to find a tiny fish. "Might be silly. I am afraid you will laugh at me." Luna felt a surge of recognition and affection. How many times had she heard this? How many creatures arrived convinced their questions were too small, too simple, too foolish to matter? "There are no silly questions here," Luna said gently. "Every question is brave. What do you want to know?" The tiny fish took a breath. "What is wisdom? Everyone talks about seeking wisdom, about the library preserving wisdom, but I do not actually know what it is. Is it the same as knowledge? Is it the same as being smart? What does it actually mean?" Luna felt something shift inside her. In all her years as head librarian, no one had asked this fundamental question. Everyone assumed they knew what wisdom meant, but did they? Did she? "That," Luna said slowly, "is possibly the most important question anyone has ever asked here, and I realize that I do not have a complete answer. Come with me." Luna called together the most thoughtful creatures she knew. The old sea turtle, Crest the healer, the leader of the shark group, Maya the human, an ancient octopus renowned for her problem-solving abilities, and several other long-time friends of the library. She posed the tiny fish's question to them all. "What is wisdom?" They discussed and debated for hours. Everyone had a different perspective. The sea turtle said wisdom was experience combined with reflection, the ability to learn from what had happened and apply those lessons going forward. Crest said wisdom was knowing when to act and when to wait, understanding that the right action at the wrong time was still wrong. The shark said wisdom was seeing beyond your immediate needs to understand long-term consequences, thinking about tomorrow as well as today. Maya said wisdom was humility combined with curiosity, knowing how much you did not know and staying eager to learn more. The octopus said wisdom was flexibility, the ability to adapt your thinking when new information arrived, never being so attached to an idea that you could not let it go if something better came along. Luna listened to all of them and felt understanding crystallize. "Wisdom is all of these things," she said slowly, "but it is something more too. Wisdom is the space between knowledge and action, where we think about what we know, consider what it means, and decide how to use it in ways that help rather than harm. Knowledge is having information. Wisdom is knowing what to do with it." The tiny fish, who had been listening intently to everything, spoke up. "So wisdom is not something you have, like you have a shell or fins. It is something you do, something you practice." "Yes," Luna exclaimed. "Exactly yes. You can study wisdom, learn from wise beings, read about wise decisions, but you become wise by practicing wisdom, by thinking carefully, acting thoughtfully, learning from mistakes, and always trying to grow into better understanding." The tiny fish seemed to grow larger somehow, swimming with new confidence. "So wisdom is not something I am born with. It is something I choose to do, to think and learn and grow." "Now you understand," Luna said warmly, "and by asking your question, you have just helped me understand it better too. That is how wisdom grows, through questions, through discussion, through thinking together. You have given a gift to the entire library today.
Inspired by the tiny fish's question, Luna decided to create something new. A meta-scroll, a scroll about scrolls. A collection of fundamental questions about knowledge itself. What is learning? What is understanding? What is the difference between information and wisdom? Why do we seek knowledge? What responsibility comes with knowing things? She invited everyone to contribute, and the responses poured in. Young creatures and old, predators and prey, visitors from warm shallows and cold depths, each one adding their perspective on the nature of knowledge and the purpose of learning. One entry particularly moved Luna. It came from a creature she had never met, a wandering eel who had heard about the project from passing dolphins. The eel wrote, "I spent my life searching for the secret to existence, the one piece of knowledge that would make everything make sense. I travelled the entire ocean, asked every wise creature I could find, read every philosophy, studied every tradition, and I finally discovered the answer. There is no single answer. Existence is too vast, too complex, too beautiful to be reduced to one truth. The secret is that the search itself is the point. Wisdom is not a destination, it is a direction. We keep swimming toward understanding, knowing we will never fully arrive, and that is not failure. That is the glory of being alive and conscious and able to wonder." Luna read this passage over and over, feeling its truth resonate through her entire being. She thought of herself as a young whale, terrified that she did not know enough to be head librarian. She had been right. She had not known enough. She still did not know enough. No one ever would. But that was not a weakness. That was the nature of existence, the endless frontier of understanding that made every day an opportunity to learn something new.
Luna was 42 years old when she met the young whale who would eventually replace her. His name was Torrent, and he arrived at the library with a question that immediately caught her attention. "I want to know," he said, his voice strong but his eyes uncertain, "how to choose what kind of creature to become. I am young. I have my whole life ahead of me. There are so many things I could do, so many paths I could take. How do I choose? How do I know I am choosing right?" Luna saw herself in him so clearly it made her heart ache. "Come swim with me," she said, and she led him away from the library, out into the open ocean where the water was clear and the possibilities felt infinite. They swam in silence for a while, and then Luna spoke. "I was your age when I became head librarian. I was terrified. I was certain I had chosen wrong, that I was not ready, that I would fail. And I did fail, many times. I made mistakes, gave bad advice, directed creatures to wrong scrolls, misunderstood questions. But I kept trying, kept learning, kept growing, and slowly I became someone who could do this work." She paused, organizing her thoughts. "Here is what I have learned about choosing. You do not choose once and forever. You choose every day. You choose in each moment. The path you start on does not have to be the path you stay on. Cascade, my mother, was training to be head librarian, but she chose to roam instead, and that was right for her. I could have left the library at any time if I had discovered it was not right for me. The choice is not a prison, it is an invitation." Torrent listened carefully. "But how do I know what is right?" "You do not know. You cannot know. You make your best guess based on who you are in this moment, what interests you, what feels meaningful, and then you pay attention to how it feels as you live it. Does it make you grow? Does it challenge you in good ways? Does it feel like you are becoming more yourself, not less? Those are signs you are on a good path, even if it is hard. Trust yourself, trust the journey, and know that choosing is not about finding the one perfect path. It is about committing to a path and making it meaningful through how you walk it.
8 years later, Luna was 50 years old, and she knew the time had come. She was not as old as Meridian had been when she passed the role, but Luna had come to understand that there was no single right time for such transitions. The right time was when you felt called to something else, when you had someone ready to carry the work forward, when the moment arrived and felt true. Torrent had spent those 8 years practically living at the library. He had studied every scroll, helped with reorganizations, guided countless visitors, created new systems for preservation, and proven himself to be thoughtful, dedicated, and wise beyond his years. More importantly, he still asked questions, still admitted when he did not know, still approached each day as an opportunity to learn. Luna called the ceremony on a clear autumn morning, when the water was crisp and bright and the light seemed to come from everywhere at once. Creatures gathered from across the ocean, filling the water with their presence, their attention, their respect for this ancient tradition. Luna floated at the center of the library, feeling the weight of 19 years of service, of thousands of interactions, of countless lessons learned and shared. Beside her, Torrent waited, trying to look calm, but unable to hide his nervousness. "We gather here," Luna began, her voice carrying across the assembly, "to honor a tradition that is older than any of us, older than our grandparents' grandparents. The floating library belongs to everyone and no one. It is our gift to each other, our commitment to the future, our acknowledgement that learning never stops and wisdom grows through sharing." She told stories of her time as head librarian, the challenges, the joys, the mistakes, the discoveries. She spoke of Meridian's wisdom, of how everything she was had been built on what Meridian taught her. She talked about the importance of questions, of humility, of staying open to growth. "Today," she continued, "I pass this responsibility to Torrent, who has proven himself through years of dedication, study, and service. Torrent, do you accept the role of head librarian, with all its challenges and rewards, its endless questions, and eternal opportunities to learn?" Torrent's voice trembled slightly, but his words were clear. "I accept, knowing that I will make mistakes, that I will fail sometimes, that I will never know enough. I promise to serve with humility and dedication, to preserve the old wisdom while staying open to new understanding, to treat every visitor with respect and care. I promise to remember that wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about asking good questions and helping others find their own paths to understanding." Luna felt tears form, the same tears she had felt when Meridian passed the role to her. "Then it is done. From this moment forward, Torrent is head librarian of the floating library of the whales." The ocean erupted in celebration, songs and clicks and calls, creating a symphony that spoke of continuity, of tradition maintained, of the endless cycle of learning and teaching and learning again. After the ceremony, after the celebrations faded and the crowds dispersed, Luna found herself floating alone among the scrolls one final time as head librarian. She ran her fin along the kelp, saying goodbye to the work that had defined her adult life, to the responsibility that had shaped her into who she had become. Torrent swam up beside her. "What will you do now?" he asked softly. Luna smiled. "I am going to roam, like my mother did. There are parts of the ocean I have never seen,
creatures I have never met, wisdom I have never encountered. I want to learn things that have no scrolls yet, ask questions no one has thought to ask, and bring back new knowledge to share. And someday, when I am old, I will return here one last time, as Meridian did, to see what the library has become. I will miss you, Torrent said. I will miss you too, but this is right. You will do wonderful things with the library, things I never imagined. You will face challenges I never faced and find solutions I never dreamed of. The library will grow in new directions under your care, and that is how it should be. Each keeper adds something unique. That is the beauty of this work. She prepared to leave, but Torrent stopped her. Wait, I want to show you something. He led her to the newest scroll, one he had just begun to inscribe. The title made her eyes fill with tears. The Scroll of Gratitude.
I am starting a new tradition, Torrent explained. A scroll where every head librarian, when they step down, is honoured by those whose lives they touched. Will you read what has been written so far? Luna read the inscriptions, messages from creatures across the ocean. The tiny fish whose question about wisdom had sparked so much understanding. Maya, the human who had found her purpose through the library. The shark who had arrived in hostility and left with hope. Crest, the healer who had discovered her calling. The seahorse who had learned about courage, and dozens more. Each one shared how Luna had changed their life, how she had helped them find their path, how she had treated them with respect and care. Luna read every word, her heart swelling with a gratitude that matched what was being offered to her. She had set out simply to serve the library, to preserve knowledge and help seekers. She had not realized she was also creating a community, building bridges, changing lives in ways that would ripple forward through time. Thank you, she said to Torrent, her voice thick with emotion. This is the greatest gift anyone could give me.
The next morning, as the sun rose and painted the water gold, Luna prepared to depart. The entire pod gathered to see her off, along with many of the library's regular visitors and friends. She said goodbye to each one, sharing memories, offering encouragement, receiving blessings and well wishes. When she reached Maya, the human was crying behind her diving mask. You changed my life, Maya said. You showed me that humans could belong in the ocean if we chose to belong responsibly. Because of you, I am studying marine biology. I want to dedicate my life to protecting the ocean, to being a bridge between my species and yours. You gave me that gift. You gave yourself that gift by being brave enough to come here and ask difficult questions, Luna said. I just helped you find what was already inside you. Go forth and do remarkable things, Maya. The ocean needs humans like you. Finally, she approached Cascade, her mother, who had returned for the ceremony and this farewell. They swam together one last time, mother and daughter, librarian and roaming teacher, two beings who had chosen different but complementary paths.
I am proud of you, Cascade said simply. You have done more with the library than I ever could have. You have transformed it from a collection of knowledge into a living, breathing community of learning. That is a legacy that will outlive us all. I learned from the best, Luna replied. You taught me that there are many ways to serve wisdom. Now I get to discover my own way, as you did. They embraced, the whale equivalent of a hug, their massive bodies pressed together in the eternal ocean, mother and daughter, connected by love and shared purpose. Then
Luna turned toward open water, toward the unknown, toward adventure and discovery, and all the questions she had not yet learned to ask. She looked back once at the floating library, at the golden kelp scrolls glowing in the morning light, at Torrent already greeting the first visitors of the day, at the community she had helped build and was now leaving in capable hands. And then she swam forward, diving deep into the blue mystery, ready for whatever came next.
Decades passed. The library continued as it always had, serving seekers, preserving wisdom, growing with each generation. Torrent proved to be an excellent head librarian, introducing innovations that Luna had never imagined, adapting the library to changing times while honouring its ancient purpose. Luna roamed the oceans, learning and teaching, discovering and sharing. She visited places she had only read about in scrolls, met creatures whose wisdom had never been recorded, asked questions that opened new pathways of understanding. She was not head librarian anymore, but she was still a keeper of wisdom, still a bridge between creatures and knowledge, still growing and learning with every sunrise. She returned to the library occasionally, bringing new scrolls she had created from her journeys, contributing to the ever-expanding collection. Each time she visited, she was amazed by how the library had evolved. Torrent had established exchange programs with libraries in other oceans that Luna had never known existed. He had created travelling exhibitions that brought scrolls to remote communities. He had introduced new preservation techniques that would keep the kelp scrolls viable for generations to come.
The library was no longer what it had been under Luna's care, and that was perfect. Each keeper brought their own gifts, their own vision, their own contribution to the eternal work of preserving and sharing wisdom. On her final visit, when Luna was 73 years old and her body was growing tired from years of travel, she swam slowly through the library, touching scrolls she had inscribed decades ago, reading new ones created by creatures she had never met, marvelling at how knowledge continued to grow and branch and connect in ways no one could have predicted. Torrent swam up beside her, now middle-aged himself, and confident in his role in ways that reminded her of how she had felt after years of service. "Thank you for coming," he said warmly. "The library always glows brighter when you are here." "Thank you for carrying this work forward so beautifully," Luna replied. "You have done things with the library that I never imagined. You have made it something new while honouring what it has always been. That is the mark of true wisdom." They floated together in comfortable silence, two whales who understood each other completely, who had both served the same purpose in different ways, who had both learned that leadership was not about being perfect, but about being present, about caring, about growing alongside those you served. "I came to say goodbye," Luna said softly. "This will be my last visit. I am old now, and I want to spend my remaining time in the warm waters where Meridian spent hers, where I can rest and remember and be at peace." Torrent's eyes filled with sadness and understanding. "The library will always hold your story," he said. "The scroll of gratitude grows longer every year with messages from creatures whose lives you touched. Your legacy lives here, in the knowledge you preserved, in the community you built, in the example you set of what it means to serve with humility and love." Luna smiled.
My legacy is not in what I did, but in what continues. The library does not belong to any one whale. It belongs to everyone, to the endless chain of seekers and keepers, questions and answers, learning and growth. I was just one link in that chain, and I am grateful beyond words to have been given that role. As the sun set on her final day at the library, painting the water in shades of amber and rose and violet, Luna swam slowly away. She did not look back this time. She did not need to. The library lived in her heart, in her memories, in every lesson she had learned, and every truth she had discovered during her years of service.
She swam toward the warm southern waters, toward rest, toward the final stage of a life well lived. And as she swam, she understood something that brought her deep peace. Wisdom was not something you achieved and held forever. It was something you practiced every day, in every choice, in every moment. It was the journey itself, the endless exploration of what it meant to be alive, to be conscious, to be part of the great mystery of existence. She had started as a young whale, afraid she was not wise enough to serve the library. She had grown into someone who understood that wisdom was not about having all the answers, but about asking good questions and helping others find their own paths to understanding. And now, at the end, she was discovering perhaps the greatest wisdom of all, that life itself was the ultimate teacher, that every moment held lessons, and that the learning never stopped until the very last breath. The ocean held her gently as she swam, the water warm and kind, the currents supportive. Somewhere ahead, she felt she could sense Meridian's presence, and Cascades, and all the other whales who had served the library over the centuries. They were not ghosts, but memories woven into the fabric of the ocean itself, part of the eternal cycle of life and death, learning and teaching, questions and answers. Luna swam on, carrying with her all the wisdom she had gained, all the love she had shared, all the connections she had made. She had been head librarian of the floating library of the whales for 19 years, and a seeker and teacher for all the years since. She had touched thousands of lives and been touched by them in return. She had helped preserve knowledge and create community. She had learned and grown and become more than she had ever thought possible. And as the stars began to emerge overhead, reflecting in the water like scattered diamonds, Luna understood the final truth, that she had been enough, all along. Flawed and uncertain, and constantly learning, yes, but enough. Always enough. The library would continue, the work would go on. New keepers would come, new seekers would arrive, new wisdom would be discovered and shared. The story was endless, the journey infinite, the possibilities limitless. And that, Luna thought as she drifted peacefully through the warm water, that was the most beautiful truth of all. And so, dear listener, as you drift towards sleep, carry with you the lessons of Luna and the floating library. Remember that wisdom is not about knowing everything, but about being willing to learn, to ask questions, to admit what you do not know, and to keep growing anyway. Remember that every expert was once a beginner who kept trying. that doubt can become determination, that fear can transform into courage. Remember that you do not have to be perfect to be worthy. You do not have to have all the answers to help others find their own. You just have to show up, be present, care deeply, and stay open to growth. The library exists in many forms. It exists in books and schools, in mentors and friends, in experiences and challenges, in quiet moments of reflection and loud moments of discovery. Wherever you seek knowledge with an open heart, you are visiting the library. Wherever you share wisdom with generosity, you are serving it. Your life is your own scroll, still being written. What will you inscribe upon it? What wisdom will you seek? What questions will you ask? What kind of learner? What kind of teacher? What kind of human will you choose to become? The choice is yours, made anew each morning, with every sunrise, with every breath. And now, rest well. Let the ocean of sleep carry you gently. Dream of vast waters and infinite possibilities, of scrolls waiting to be written and questions waiting to be asked. Dream of becoming, slowly and imperfectly, the wise and wonderful being you are meant to be. Sweet dreams, dear listener, until tomorrow when you wake and begin writing your story once again.